Welcome to my review for the 2018 film The Nun, directed by Corin. This is, of course, the fifth film in the Conjuring Universe. In this one, a priest is sent by the Vatican to go and investigate some strange goings-on at this monastery in Romania, where this nun has committed suicide and possibly worse is afoot. He takes with him this female nun from England, so there's two of them. And of course, when they get there, they realise that things are not just as bad as they feared, but they are worse. There's this evil spreading throughout the monastery and into the local village. So they've clearly got their work cut out for them, and the demon Valak may be involved. Well, we know she's involved as cinema goers going into the theatre, don't we? Now, this is a controversial film among fans and non-fans alike. I mean, the film made a ton of money at the box office, more than even the critically acclaimed Conjuring films, but in terms of how it was reviewed, it's got the worst review score of the series on Rotten Tomatoes, only 25%. My personal experience of the film is that I watched it drunk or tired the first time around, and I couldn't really follow the story. I was just kind of watching it, and my overall opinion was kind of meh. So I was going along with the crowd for a while, and then I watched it a second time, and I actually really enjoyed it. Then I watched it a third time, just to sort of do the due diligence for this review, and I really enjoyed it this time around. And what I really like is the setting. I mean, it's got this incredible monastery setting. I read a piece in Empire a couple of years ago when this film was being made, and I think a lot of this was done on some kind of location in Romania. And I'm not entirely sure, but it looks great. I mean, I grew up on a lot of period piece horror films from sort of like the Hammer series and various other stuff that was made in the 60s and 70s, but was set a lot earlier. So I've got a great appreciation of kind of the Gothic architecture and old style stone masonry and fancy decor with rooms with high ceilings and stuff like that. I love that stuff. So this film was a real visual treat for me. It's kind of like a modern day Hammer horror film, really. And the more you watch it, the more you kind of spot different things about the set dressings and little details that the camera angles show you, both inside and outside of the monastery. I really love it. I think maybe the reason why the film didn't take so well is maybe people were expecting Valak in this film to be more like she was in those great 5 minutes of The Conjuring 2, where she was absolutely terrifying. I mean, you could say that those 5 minutes of film basically earned Warner Brothers $360 million down the track, because it was incredible kind of guest appearance that Valak made in that movie. But I think people were kind of expecting more than that, but it was never going to be like that. You know, you can take a spin-off character and put them in their own movie, but you've still got to craft a proper story and balance out the scares and the characterization and the build-up and all that stuff. You were never going to get as much Valak per square yard in the spin-off as you were in that movie. So, but it's still a scary film. There's plenty of really good scenes that really give you a jolt. I mean, the one that comes to mind for me is where Sister Irene, the female nun character, is trying to escape down this corridor from Valak, and the corridor just starts moving and rotating, and so she loses all sense of perspective as to where the floor and the ceiling is, and the screen goes all kind of blurry, and you can just make out Valak in the background sort of coming towards her. I like that one. And there's another one that wasn't actually even a jump scare. It was just this kind of twist that takes place about 20 minutes from the end, and the implications of it were so chilling that it was as good as any other scare in the movie for me. Because I think the story in this film is one of the best in the franchise. I think the previous four films, as good as most of them were, they were almost always a variation on the same theme, you know, someone being possessed or in danger of being possessed. But this one has a proper storyline that you can get into, and there's all these kind of twists and turns along the way and things you didn't expect, and it kind of doubles back on itself at various parts. It was really good. If I had to read a novelization of any of these 5 films so far in the series, I think it would probably be this one, I think. In terms of the acting, Taissa Farmiga plays Sister Irene. She's a good actress. I saw her in American Horror Story. She's got the potential to be as good as her sister in terms of a career going forward. I definitely think so. And the guy who plays Father Burke, I forget the actor's name, but he was really good as well. He's a really reassuring presence throughout the movie. In terms of Frenchie, the third sort of main character, a bit more neutral on him, but he's still okay. But on the whole, I really enjoyed this film. There's some negatives, definitely. It's not a masterpiece by any stretch. I think the final 15 minutes, there's a bit too much coming at the screen. This film had a large budget, sort of like 22 million, which is a lot for a horror film. And I think by the time they got to the closing sort of act of this movie, it's almost like they thought, oh God, we've still got 5 million we haven't spent. Let's throw a few more effects and a bit more ceiling coming down over there, and we'll throw a few more ghost effects over there. And I think it was just a bit too much. And I think But one of the symptoms of this is just the fact that there's just too many characters left by the end, I think. And that brings me to my second criticism, which is the film really lets the characters off with a lot of stuff in this movie. The implication is that the monastery has really been killing off characters really, really easy in terms of the history leading up to the movie. You know, nuns have been dying all over the place. The whole area's got a really bad history of things happening to it. You know, like bombs hitting it during the war. We get flashbacks of this evil lord who was stringing all these people up and doing all this really nefarious stuff. But once our main characters turn up at the monastery, it feels like, you know, Valak's having an off day and they're just getting let off for stuff all the time. And I think the film should have tried to be a bit more horrific and bumped one or two of them off. I don't think it would have ruined the film at all. And I think my third criticism would be that we don't really explore the character of Irene as much. In terms of Father Burke, we kind of get a lot about him and his backstory. But in terms of Irene, I kind of feel like we just scratched the surface. I mean, earlier on in the movie, she gets admonished for not wearing a nun uniform when this Vatican representative turns up, and that kind of tells me that maybe she's not emotionally ready to become a nun, or she's not quite 100% ready to do it, or sure that she wants to do it. But we never find out what her thoughts and feelings are about becoming a nun. And later on in the film, when it's all over, we don't really get any sense of what effect the movie's going to have on her going forward either. So I mean, I don't think the movie should have been longer just to get more of this stuff in, because I think that would have annoyed people even more when it came to reviewing it. But certainly just a bit more sharpening of the dialogue here and there, and just throw a few more things about Irene, and it could have been better, I think. But on the whole, I'll certainly defend the movie. If you told me that they were re-releasing this in cinemas, I would go and see it, because I didn't see it at the cinema the first time around. But I would definitely watch it again, just as an excuse to watch the visuals. It's up my alley, this film, to an extent. I mean, it's got its faults, definitely, but I don't think you can, you know, it's certainly not one of the worst spin-offs in, like, the first Annabelle film, for example. I think it's pretty decent. So let's have a look into the bag of terror and find out what sort of score we're going to get today. We've got 1, 2, 3... There's something else. And a half. 3.5 bloody axes for The Nun. Considering how badly reviewed this film was, I think 3.5 is a good score from a random YouTuber out of 5. This puts it just behind the two Conjuring movies and Annabelle Creation, but it puts it significantly ahead of Annabelle. So by no means the worst film in the series. I think when this whole thing is done and finished and they're not making any more of these movies, I'll probably look back on this one as being sort of middle of the pack, but who knows. Now, there's no pin for the horror locations board today. Oh, actually, no, there is, for Romania. So I will add that in a separate clip after this. So I completely lost my head for a second there. And I will be back soon to do The Curse of La Llorona, which will be the 6th film in the series. I'll be reviewing that soon. So until next time, cheerio, bye-bye.